I know that we haven't been able to travel to see each of you, but the wonderful world of Zoom has allowed us to be in this space together. So I really want to just start by stating name, year you graduated from CDS, where you attended or are attending, when you plan to graduate, and your major. So I would love to start up here with CB. Take it away.
Yeah, so hi everybody. My name is Colton Brown. Graduated in the year of 2019 after 14. I attend the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And I'm the Jordan year of 23, so I'm graduating in 2023, and I'm a political science major.
Very nice. Thank you, Colton.
Hi, I am Elizabeth Mangone. I was class of 2017 at Carolina Day, and I am now at Furman University in my senior year, and I will be graduating in May with majors of studio art and economics.
Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm CDS class of 2018. I go to Duke Kunshan University, so it's like a Duke program, but in China. It's complicated. I'm graduating in 2022, so I'm a junior right now, and I major in institutions and governance / economics. So it's econ, but with a bunch of like pol sci and IR and philosophy mixed in.
Thank you.
Hi friends, I'm Samantha. I graduated the same year as Chris, so 2018 from CDS. I attend UNC Chapel Hill, though I'm currently doing that from Uganda. I'm not sure when I'm graduating because I took this first semester of the COVID year off because I did not want to do online school, and I worked at a pro bono law clinic in San Francisco. Now I'm in Uganda. My major is in global studies, focusing on social movements, politics, and policy of East Africa, and then a minor in public policy. Thank you for having me.
Hello, I'm Eric Perlis, class of 2017 as well, and I am at American University in Washington, D.C., finishing up my master's program in economics.
Hey, I'm Scott Hildebrand. I was class of 2017 as well. I currently attend the University of Alabama until this next Sunday when I graduate, and I'm studying management information systems.
So welcome, and what a range of majors, which I absolutely love, and we're gonna jump in here shortly to talk a little bit more about that. But I wanna know what activities in and outside of the classroom that you have done while you're in school, and just give us a little description about what you can find and what piques your interest. So I know whoever would like to start that off, that would be wonderful.
Let's do it. Hand raising, I need to do that. But I was involved when I was on campus. So I was on campus for just under a year. My freshman year, the second half of my freshman year is when COVID hit. But in that time, I was the field director for and then I was also involved on campus with intramural basketball, intramural ultimate frisbee. So some sports and stuff that intramural sports that UNC offers. And then I was also just kind of generally involved with like spirit stuff and whatnot on campus. Well, that's what I was basically on campus.
And Colton, I know you said you're a field director for, it went out just briefly.
Yeah, sorry. So I was a field director for a Chapel Hill Town Council campaign. So basically their city council. I work consultant alongside going to school.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can follow up on that. So from day one at Alabama, I joined a fraternity. So that was probably the first extracurricular thing. And I don't know, I'd recommend joining something from the very beginning. It doesn't have to be Greek life, it could be anything else, but that helped a lot, especially at bigger schools, to kind of find your circle. So club, sports team, anything like that's always solid. I also, at some point, I joined a professional fraternity. I didn't find that as useful, but that's when I started to focus more on the professional side of things and lining up a future career and whatnot. And then past that, I know at some point it was mentioned study abroad in that email. I went to New Zealand, I guess it was junior year, had an internship after that, and then this past year, I've been interning through a startup in Alabama through the university. So that's kind of the overview of the stuff I've been up to outside of school.
I can go. So I'm heavily involved with one of the hubs on Chapel Hill's campus for activism. So specifically, most of my energy outside of like studies goes towards a student collective that's an anti-racism and prison abolition group. And so we're working within the criminal justice system, like both with awareness on the campus, but then also like within the broader community. I've done work with youth detentions and public defenders offices and things like that. And I would say if any of you are activist minded, there's lots of opportunities in the university sphere to learn and grow and expand your activist identity that hopefully Carolina Day has fostered a little bit inside of you. And at Chapel Hill, there's something called the Campus Y, which is like the center of all social justice activity. And there you can kind of find what groups you're in affinity with or that you're interested in. And if any of you are interested in learning more about prison abolition work, you can definitely chat me and I can send you information.
I can go next. So like Scott, I also got involved in Greek life. Furman has a spring recruitment, not a fall recruitment. So I wasn't in a sorority my first semester, but I joined that first spring, and that's been my biggest involvement by far. I was on our standards council, which is kind of like our own internal honor council, and I was the treasurer and I was the president for my organization. And I've also been involved in a couple of clubs around campus. So I'm part of the Women in Economics organization. I've served on the Echo Literary Magazine as an assistant editor and on the editorial board, which was an interest that was fostered at CDS, being part of that literary magazine. And then I'm also part of the ODE Economics fraternity. And then, I was also a fellow on a grant to study a late local artist in the Greenville area. So that was really interesting. I was able to take the class. We curated an exhibition of his work for the CLP program that I told you guys about. So that was a really good experience.
Yeah, and similar to Samantha, I got involved in activism and advocacy up in DC. I got involved with an organization called the Roosevelt Network, which was geared towards teaching young people how to get involved in progressive policy, especially on the local level. So we did things like organizing to get our horrendous dining service provider off campus, working with DC Council on carbon pricing and other policies like that. And then I also had a lot of internships because that's just a lot of the culture in DC. Said I worked with the Senate Finance Committee to do tax policy work. I've worked with a couple different PACs on campaign finance reform. And then with Colton on the side, we've both done a lot of campaigns together. So there's never a shortage of things to do from DC. And I also, like Scott, I did study abroad. I went to Brussels in Belgium, and then I also did Madrid in Spain during summer 2018. And that was a very fun time.
Yeah, and so I guess I'm the last one to go, but pretty much my entire college experience up until COVID hit has been study abroad since I'm in China the entire time. But as for specific like on-campus activities, I've been involved with like one club that visits a sort of the equivalent of a retirement home near our campus. And it's specifically like elderly people without living relatives in the nearby area. So we like to go visit them during holidays. And we try and pair like international students with Chinese students so that the Chinese students can try and help interpret, which is less a language issue and more of an accent issue. But yeah, so that, and then also I learned some Korean when I was in high school, and so we have a contingent of Korean students at our school who decided to take up the challenge of offering Korean classes since our school did not offer official classes, and they recruited a few of us non-Korean students who spoke like intermediate level to act as TAs, which basically just meant that we had to act out all of the conversation samples that they gave us. Yeah.
Well, you all have been very busy, and I know that we intentionally curated both the class of 2017 and 2018 because we wanted to get that experience, because you have been in college a little bit longer and have had the experience without a pandemic in the midst of it. So I hope you all sophomores can hear that there's a lot of different things that you can get involved in. I do want to ask Elizabeth and Scott a little bit more about Greek life, because I know some of our students have heard about Greek life, but don't really know all of the ins and outs. And so why did you join a fraternity and sorority?
See, at Alabama, it really is. I mean, I don't know. It's a good way to establish, like I said earlier, like your network from day one, because there are 40,000 people on this campus. So I mean, it's really it's massive, and going into that and going through the whole pledgeship process, it's a good way to build that network for the next 4 years. And I'm still in touch with most of my pledge class and whatnot. I don't think it's for everyone, but if that is something you're interested in, most universities are going to have rush weeks and whatnot to kind of feel that out and see if that's something for you. And also, I mean, Greek life is going to be very different from school to school. I know my experience is probably vastly different than Elizabeth's experience. So I think it's kind of just up to you to figure it out as a student if that's something you want to pursue. But I would definitely recommend at least checking it out.
Yeah, I would agree that it's definitely worth looking at. I came into school not thinking I would be part of a Greek organization. If we had had a fall rush, I almost certainly would not have, just because it wouldn't have even crossed my mind, just because of what my personal sort of stereotype of Greek life was, which was not what I found it to be at Furman at all. I really joined more for the social aspect and the philanthropy opportunities here. So I would agree with Scott, it's going to be different school to school, and even within the same organization at different schools. Like the KKGs at Clemson are a very different vibe than the KKGs here. And yeah, I've really enjoyed my experience. I think that it was a great opportunity, and it provides a lot of leadership opportunities. Like I said, I've been really heavily involved in leadership, and that's definitely helped me both personally and professionally.
Thank you for saying that, both of you, because I know that typically if we watch a movie, there's things that are portrayed of what a fraternity and sorority life looks like. And so I think it's really important to know that there is a vast range of getting involved with Greek life. Excuse me. So as we go into our next question, how did you decide your major? What were some of the influences to determine that? And I would like to say, if we could start with Chris, not to try to put you on the spot, but we'll start with Chris, and then we will go to Samantha, and I will keep popcorning from there. How about that?
Okay. So my university has a dual major system, not like a normal dual major, but we have an interdisciplinary major and a disciplinary major. So you can take a different combination of them as long as they fit together in a certain way. So my interdisciplinary major is institutions and governance. And that was because I sort of came in knowing I would either take institutions and governance or political economy. And I took one of the basic classes for political economy, got into a massive argument with the professor on day one, dropped the class and said, okay, I'm an institutions and governance major. I'm not dealing with this, which is a bit petty, but it's realistic. And then for my disciplinary major, economics, I wanted to go into social sciences. My dad wanted me to go into STEM, and that was the compromise.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, so for me, I went in freshman year assuming I would be a public policy major, which then moved down to a minor. And the summer of my freshman year, I went for 3.5 months to Uganda, where I am now. It's my first time. And I was working with a grassroots organization, environmentalist group there, and came back I don't remember, either it was my freshman year or it was my freshman year. I went to a lecture that was held by a professor who was not my professor, but I found her like super inspirational. She had been part of like Occupy Wall Street movements, and she just like really spoke to me and was like someone who I wanted to become my mentor. And I started like going to her office hours and really learning more about the global studies department, and then specifically like counter globalization narratives. And then like switched my major and wanted to keep public policy because I found like a lot of the things I was looking at of like social inequalities, like what were the actors to create social change, and I was like looking at the government through public policy. So I wanted to keep that aspect of like intellectual inquiry in my world. So I made that a minor, and then got to explore more through the global studies major, and then specifically have like, for other reasons, found passion and home here in Uganda, and am studying like the activism and social movements of East Africa. So, yeah.
Thank you, Samantha. Let's go to Scott Hildebrand, and then we're going to go to Colton.
Okay. Yeah, I came into school as just a general business major, kind of an umbrella major, which I knew I didn't want to stay at general business for a while, but I didn't exactly know until about sophomore year what I wanted to zone in on. But I realized what I actually enjoyed doing with school and kind of where I wanted to head career-wise was more software engineering, coding, tech-oriented. So I, without wanting to actually add another year and switch to CS, I checked out our management information systems program, which has been great. I think, you know, sometimes the big state school CS programs are hit or miss, and I've heard mixed reviews about ours. So I transitioned sophomore year into that. Been going well ever since. I'd say the one thing that helped me a lot was actually picking something that I enjoyed. It's a lot easier to succeed at something that you're actually enjoying while you're doing it, and you see a future with it as well. My words of wisdom.
Yeah, so for my major, I've been involved. If anyone remembers me in high school, I was very politically involved, starting my school. So, you know, political science major, you know, do long term. And then I also forgot, I'm also a drama minor. So I was a big theater kid in high school, started to play with Eric. And you know, had a good time. So I mean, enjoyed politics and activism is really something I love, and then drama is something I love. So
Thank you, Colton. And I know, so you went out just a little bit, and I just want to, I want to make sure that we capture that because you have done so much. So if you would just give us a quick overview of what you just said so our audience members can hear.
yeah, totally. Been weird on Zoom for literally weeks. But basically, so political science works, and that's what I want to do in my career. And I was a big theater kid, so I also took on a drama minor.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So let's go to Elizabeth, and then we will follow up with Eric.
Okay. So I knew that I wanted a studio art major coming into Furman. That was one of the big reasons why I picked Furman, was because I thought their studio art program was wonderful and really supportive. And then I thought, to go along with that, that I would do a business major, because at that point I was planning on being a studio artist, and that made the most sense to me to figure out how to run the business side of that. However, first semester freshman year, I took an intro to economics class and just absolutely fell in love with that subject. And it sort of like really opened up my worldview and changed how I like understand how I make decisions and all of that type of stuff. So economics is more of like a passion major for me. It's not as applicable to my next steps and what I'm going to do in my career, although I think that it's kind of applicable to everything. But yeah, I mostly do that because I love it. And then studio art and the art history aspect of that are more important to my next steps.
Yeah, similar to Elizabeth, economics has always been like a passion of mine. I knew right from the get-go, heading into college, I wanted to get involved in public policy, and I felt studying economics and getting my master's in it was the right way to go. And I have to thank Hertzinger and Dr. Nidak for awakening that in myself. And Nidak would kill me when he finds out that I still have not read the book he gave me senior year, now 4 years later. But I have them to thank a lot for pursuing economics. And of course, Nidak having doctor in front of his name has definitely pushed me to eventually go get my PhD in it one day.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know we have some questions coming into the chat, and I recognize that, and we will get to those questions, I promise. I think just from what Samantha said earlier and what you just said, Eric, sparked a question in terms of the connections that you have created or still had throughout your college career, whether that's friends, professors, things like that. If you wouldn't mind talking about those connections you've established and the importance of it. And let's start with Scott. We're going to jump to Elizabeth, and then we'll keep popcorning that way.
Yeah, as far as connections, and I don't know, I feel like I've made a lot of friends here, but I kind of did my own thing for a while as far as professional connections and more connections that I expect to keep up with later on in life when I'm trying to hit my goals, I guess. And I've kind of been realizing that this past year, as I've gotten more involved within my program here at UA. So I think it's important to find that balance because, yeah, I mean, I've had a great time and I got a lot of friends here, but not a lot of my friends are going to be going into the stuff that I'm going into after I graduate. So I kind of wish I balanced that out more, but I don't know, it's been good. Yeah, I think, I mean, if you're involved in the things you want to be involved in, you're going to make the connections you need. So.
Yeah, obviously my sorority sisters are kind of my primary connections within my friend group. And then sort of on the more professional side, this is advice I give to like everyone who talks to me about college. And it's something that I think that you as Carolina Day students have a real one-up on your classmates or peers, is like making connections with your professors. I think you get to sort of be friends with your teachers at CDS in a way that not everyone gets in high school. And so don't be afraid to like go talk to your professors in both office hours for class and then also about life. because they are really valuable connections. My art history professor has been extremely helpful in terms of helping me find my master's program and helping me evaluate my choices. Dr. Taha, who taught me my Econ 111 class, has been a great mentor for me. So those connections are also really important and can help you out. Both just like it's nice to be on friendly terms with your professors, and then also later on professionally.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Let's go to Eric and then to Chris. And I know Eric, you touched on the subject, but if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, I think starting off with like personal friends and connections. Obviously, most of the students in DC, they're folks that want to get involved in political work, policy work, activism. And because of that, so a lot of my friend group, they're people that are going to work for the federal government. They're working on campaigns across the country. And so it's one of those things where I could show up in any city and probably have a place to stay now because there are people that are always moving across the country, working in different areas. And then echoing what Elizabeth said, get really close with your professors. My econ professors I've known since my freshman year, and they've been phenomenal resources. A couple of my professors were really close. We banter on Twitter a lot. Like there's just a lot. You can get really close with your professors, and it makes not only the education that much easier. It's like I've had some professors in my econ program 3 or 4 times now. It makes taking those courses much easier. And if you ever have any questions or need help, it just really makes it that much easier. And then on the professional side, obviously DC, there's never scarce amount of professional connections. I've really been blessed to have met people working in Congress, working for think tanks, working for PACs, and being able to just like call these people up on a moment's notice and they'll treat me as an equal. So especially in a lot of major cities, we'll have other advocacy organizations and think tanks and policy centers. And a lot of those people are looking for people who are interested in just learning about those things, and they would be more than happy to talk to you. I mean, one of my recent experiences is I was writing a term paper on antitrust in the dairy industry, and I called up an antitrust lawyer in the DOJ, and I shot him an email and I said, "Hey, would you be willing to talk about this?" Immediately 5 minutes later, sent from iPhone, "Here's my phone number, give me a call, we'll talk." And a lot of these people, they just do want to talk. So don't be afraid to reach out and build out your network. And I'm 4 years into this. It's still terrifying no matter what. Networking is the worst thing I've ever done in college, but it does work and it will absolutely help you.
Yeah. So my program is really small. I'm the first class at Duke Kunshan. They had a master's program before, but I'm part of the first undergraduate year. And there's only around 300 people in my entire class, and 2/3 of that is Chinese. The remaining third is a mix of international students from around the world. And sort of to go off of what Eric was saying about having, people in like cities are all over the country where, you can stay with people, people. I feel like I kind of have that for a lot of countries around the world. Some of my best friends who are in a lot of my same classes because we're in the same major are from like Pakistan, Mongolia, Morocco, El Salvador. And it's just really interesting to, get that perspective from around the world, learn different cultural traditions, stuff like that. And then to touch more on the professional and professor side, I have some professors that I just really enjoy talking with, and not just in my major, but also sort of outside my major in philosophy, in sociology, in IR more generally, including one who loaned me a book right before COVID hit, and I still haven't been able to give him back his book, and I'm kind of scared I will never get to give him back his book. But it's very nice. Professors will recommend you books and give you them, and you will put off reading them until you physically cannot put off reading it anymore. There's a thing that will happen. Yeah, and on the professional connection side, I'm a very shy person. I do not easily seek out connections unless I am forced to. Um, but sometimes, since we are a Duke program, we do get Duke professors who come for like a semester. They teach half the semester since we are on a quarter system, and then they get the other quarter to do their own work. They love it. And they sometimes will have big meetings, including with professors from like other really good Chinese universities like Tsinghua, Beida, Fudan, and they'll invite them. And sometimes they'll invite students who they think would, really enjoy the discussion to come like have lunch with these professors from all around China and around the world. And it's just a really interesting experience to join in on those sorts of discussions.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes. So I'll talk on the personal side first. I was always like kind of a really big. I've always been a very loud kind of social butterfly or whatnot. Eric's smiling because he knows that he knows that's the truth. So I came in, and really what I just came in when I came to college, right? And is that I've been at CDS for 14 years, small school, my entire life. UNC is magnitudes larger than that. But I just said, you know what, I'm just going to talk to literally pretty much everybody I see. And that's what I did. And, some people were like, I'm good, dog. But some people really ended up really meshing with me. And so, I mean, like my birthday party, my birthday is a month into college, and I had 27 people in a small dorm room for my birthday. And then, but also those connections are people that, I've really been able to make. And I think Scotty really talked about, networking within your own network, like within what you want to do. And so I've been really lucky as well to befriend some very prominent local activists, people who are looking to also get involved in progressive politics here in North Carolina. Eric, has a lot of those kind of DC connections. I've been really lucky to make some of the more connections on the North Carolina level. And meet people who are in county governments, in the state house, the state senate, and it's definitely on touching on being involved with like meeting your professors. Understand that you really do have to put in an effort. Coming from CDS, I was like, oh well, I was BFFs with Hertzinger. It's going to be very easy for me to talk. It's hard. Like, it's actually hard to go befriend your professor because you are constantly going, but it is worthwhile. I have some great professors that I love, that they love me, hopefully, and they're really great resources to have long term.
Thank you, Colton. Samantha, will you please take it away?
Sure. So the first thing I kind of want to say is I think that started in high school, but then was really solidified for me in college, was that like the people who I want in my life as my mentors and role models are people who like the way that they live their lives outside of the professional sphere is something that I want to emulate or something that I find inspiring or want to look up to. Ms. Garland was one of the very key people for me in high school around that. And I would say that like I look at it a little bit differently than perhaps some of the rhetoric that's been talked about, but I don't see it so much as like connections, but as community building. And I think that for me, like, how are we building our communities is a really important question to ask. And I think that like in university, yes, like building community with your age mates and your professors is really important, but like what are ways that like the people who you're making connections with are different from perhaps like the people you've grown up around, and what are ways that you can expand your perspectives and worldviews based on the people who you're building community with. And I've talked about that one professor who for me is like now a mentor, and I like second everyone in that, like, yeah, you have to like work hard at it, but then also don't be afraid to like reach the academic into the like personal, like talk about real things. I think that vulnerability and authenticity is something that is really valued in university space, because like universities are knowledge producers, and when the more real we are, the more that we can like connect with one another. So yeah, I have one like really important professor who I like consider a mentor and hope will be in my life and my community for a long time. And then I would also say like the people who are like your friends, like really shape your experience a lot.
Thank you, Samantha. And I know that we are coming to almost the end of our time together, and I want to create space for some questions for the sophomores. And then I also do have one more question from my personal list of questions that I have. But I do want to go over to the chat where we see Adeline's. What has been your favorite thing about college? Just one thing. One, like, what has been your favorite thing about college? And so let's go and start with Elizabeth. I'm going to go through Elizabeth, Samantha, Colton, and then we're gonna.
Oh gosh, picking just one thing is really, really hard. I have loved everything about being at Furman. I guess I might shift it a little because picking one favorite thing is hard. So I might shift it to what's been maybe the most meaningful to my experience. And I really think that it was my sorority. I think that they have helped me the most with my personal growth. And I have learned how to be a leader and learned how to think about others and how what I do will affect them by being a part of that. And then it's also given me the national sorority as well. So as some people have talked about with their like networking connections, I know like if I'm going in somewhere, I can post in the national Facebook group and be like, hey, anyone got a couch? Or if I'm moving somewhere, there's people who will have coffee with me. So that's been, I think, the most meaningful part.
For me, it's been the unlearning. I think that like my experience with university so far, I've unlearned a lot about myself. I've unlearned a lot about the world and the perceptions I had of how systems work and relationships should work in many different spheres. And so I think that like the best thing is that you get to expand and unlearn and relearn and challenge yourself. And yeah, it's beautiful and it can be hard. So don't just go in assuming it's all easy, because it's not at all.
I would have to say really succinctly, people. I fell in love with the community, and I've met so many amazing people, so many talented, intelligent people from all over the world. My suite mate was from Shanghai. I have friends from Honduras, and Europe and Africa, and it's just great. I mean, people are so amazing, which is of course something that we're really learning with this pandemic. And I was really grateful for the community that UNC has offered to me.
Thank you, Colton. So why don't we go to Scott, Chris, and Eric, and then we'll go on to the next questions, which I may just have select panelists answer. Okay, so Scott, Chris, and Eric.
So I agree with Colton. I mean, it's the people for me, probably. I mean, college is an absolute blast. It's a ton of fun. And I get excited every time I go back from break to school and getting to see everyone. And I guess I won't do just one thing. If I were to say one like extracurricular activity, probably study abroad. That expands your network a whole lot. And I don't know, it's just a good experience to get out of your usual network. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm going to mostly agree with Samantha here. I'm someone who's very interested in like politics, economics, sociology, history, that sort of stuff. And I think growing up in the US, we tend to really center on stuff in the US. And I think being in China for so long has really not only changed the way I see the world, but also the way I see US media and sort of the way the US views the rest of the world.
Yeah, and kind of echoing what Samantha said, unlearning a lot and like rebuilding not only the community that you want to see around yourself, but also learning a lot more about yourself. I'm definitely coming out of college now, very different person than when I entered. And I think that by far was just the most impactful part of all of college. Like, you really do find yourself in college.
I absolutely love that, because I think that is true. I think fostering that community here at Carolina Day School, but then going and really finding who you are is a key component. I know that there are plenty of questions that are coming into the chat, and one is from Eric Perlis. So are there any major regrets or things you've learned not to do? And so I'm going to just have that question to two of you, because I know that we have some more questions in the chat I want to get to. So Scott, if you wouldn't mind taking that question, and then also Colton, if you wouldn't mind taking that question. So things that you've learned not to do.
Colton, do you want to go first? I gotta think of some.
Scotty, what do you mean, man?
Throwing you under the bus here.
Oh, I can go first, dog. I got you.
Thank you.
And well, this just applies for kind of for college and honestly for high school. And I think some more, and that when I look, it's just like sometimes just psyching yourself out. That's a regret in that, take every opportunity you can get, to learn things or whatever, I mean, I came into college and I tried to do a lot of stuff, but I was also a little, at times, more reserved than I wish I would have been, especially in high school, really, capitalize on things and capitalize on, how exciting of an opportunity life is, and to really use that. And so what have I not learned? I've learned just to not get in my head so much, just go do things and have fun.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I mean, I don't have too many regrets from my time here, but I'd say if I could do it over again, I'd probably get involved in a lot more stuff freshman year. I mean, it was easy just to get involved with Greek life and then cruise through. But, if I went back, I probably would have joined some more organizations and tried to make a bunch of different social circles at the very beginning instead of kind of waiting till it's my last couple of years here.
Thank you. So at Carolina Day School, I know we have free periods, but that doesn't always help with the time management when it comes to college. So I would love to have this question to Samantha and Eric. What are some tips on time management in college?
So for me, I write down everything like physically in a planner. Like having a Google Calendar or anything online does not work for me. Like I very much need to like write with pen on paper because that helps things get in my head. I also found, this is not true for everyone, do not take this as universal advice, but like generally the more busy I am, the more productive I am because I have to be more organized. So if I have a lot of free time, then I will perhaps procrastinate. But if I'm like, okay, from 2 to 3, I'm doing this, then from 3 to 5, I have to get these assignments done. Then from 5 to like this, I learned that about myself. That is how I'm happy and that is how I function. And like, I own that. And it also does not work for everyone, but it helped me to like have a full schedule, to have it like written physically on a piece of paper. And then also to like have in like, what is the leisure time? Like, what is the fun time? Like that also has to be blocked because I think what will happen if you don't have your like fun leisure time blocked, then you'll use your like productive time for fun leisure time because like we all need that as humans. Like that's part of our wellness. So making sure that you also like give time for your self-care practices, give time for your friends, give time for whatever else, like that has to be part of your scheduling also.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with Samantha, especially on having that leisure time. So I don't have a lot of my personal schedule like planned out in a planner or a calendar. A lot of it is just knowing how to prioritize what you just need to do. Especially in graduate school, most of my assignments are semester-long projects with a few exams in between. So most of your time is spent reading materials, studying, and doing research for your papers. So a lot of it is very self-directed, and I had I already had some skills in time management, but learning more how to really prioritize, um, outlining all the steps you need to do, and knowing that you can take things piecemeal. You don't have to finish a paper 3 days before a deadline all in one go. You can actually, like, do the introduction your first week of the semester, do the next course in the next few weeks, and take it steps at a time. And that's been really helpful for me in breaking it down. But yeah, and wrapping around social life, incredibly important for time management, because if you just burn yourself out and only do work, your work will not be good. So yeah, have that time for social life, and it will just make all your productivity much better.
Thank you. And that goes into kind of having that balance. Where do you find that balance between homework and personal life? I want to ask you, because this is a huge thing, what resources, when you were thinking about in your sophomore college trip, and your junior and senior year, like, what resources did you have or need in order to make the decision on where to go to school? So, and then there's a follow-up question to that. So let's start with that one. So I'm going to have Chris and Elizabeth kind of touch on that.
Okay. So I think I mostly just did a lot of Googling and looking at college websites to see what sort of programs they offered, what classes specifically they offered, because, maybe they have a program, but it's not terribly extensive, stuff like that. I think at some point we all kind of give into this sort of like ratings urge where, you're like, oh, this school is so competitive, I should apply there. But it's ultimately not the best idea. I'm just going to tell you now, a good rated school is only rated that well because they reject so many people. It doesn't mean that they are actually significantly better than any other school.
Yes, I would totally agree with Chris on that. And in terms of how I chose Furman, this might not be supremely, although I guess maybe you'll be able to visit more schools by the time y'all are actually visiting. For me, it was just a lot about like where I could envision myself for the next 4 years, which I know sounds a bit cliche, but like it will be where you live for 4 years. Like it will be where you live, where you work, where you eat, all of that. So make sure it's somewhere that you feel comfortable, not just academically. So that was actually a big part of it for me, was stepping on campus and feeling good there. And then I also had a bit of an advantage because I knew specifically what programs I was looking for in a school. And so I was able to focus in on just those programs and evaluate those. So if you have a specific interest or like something that's a like do or die thing that you have to have, make sure you're paying that enough attention.
Thank you for saying that. And I know, again, I'm looking at some of these questions in the chat, but I think I would like to open that up to almost everyone in terms of the values that you were seeking within a university, and how did you go about finding that? And like, so values of class sizes or university size or different programs. So if you could just briefly touch about that, and we'll then go to Eric, Sam, Colton, Scott.
Yeah, so my college search was fairly different than a lot of folks because I knew from the get-go I wanted to be in DC. So that immediately narrowed it down to American University, Georgetown, and George Washington. I scrapped George Washington early on. I just never got the sense I wanted to go there. It was very an urban campus that I didn't want. So I was left between Georgetown and American. And for a while, I was leaning towards Georgetown to apply, and it was actually Miss Browning who convinced me not even apply to Georgetown and solely send my application to AU, because she said students at Georgetown go to classes in their suits, and I just found that completely horrendous. And I don't want to be on a campus where folks take themselves that seriously. So I ended up solely applying to American, and I've lucked out ever since.
Sure. So mine is really different. I was not happy to go to Chapel Hill, and I'll just keep it really real with y'all. It came down to money. It was what my family could afford, and so like that's why I went there. And I was not initially happy at all to be going there. It was like safety school. I wasn't that interested, and have totally had my perceptions changed, and like love my experience at Chapel Hill now, and have built community that I feel like really sees me and that I honor a lot. But I think that like having the privilege to go like wherever you want based on these other criteria is like oftentimes something that people who are of a higher socioeconomic status get to do. And so I also want to be real that like you may not be happy where you end up going, but I think it's like what you make of it. And I'm really, really happy with how I have made my experience at Chapel Hill, but it was not what I was initially happy with or what I initially wanted, but it was like my access to higher education.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm also Chapel Hill, and I mean, my experience is very different than Samantha's because I'm a lifelong Tar Heel. You know, I was a Carolina fan from a very young age, and UNC was my dream school, and that was from a combination of like where I wanted to be. I love North Carolina. You know, North Carolina is my home. And admittedly also though a little bit too with money is that it was a much more affordable option to me. I looked at AU to go hang out with my buddy Eric, and but UNC it was a combination of that. It's something that I always a fan of. I loved I went to the campus. I loved the campus. I loved kind of the culture, and I really wanted a big school. Like I said, I was at CDS for 14 years. And I was like, okay, I want big school. I want to meet a lot of people. So yeah, that's kind of what drove my decision.
Yeah, I was also at CDS for 14 years and absolutely no regrets at all. But by the time I graduated, I was kind of ready to go have a bigger college experience. So I was looking at larger schools from the start, and like Samantha and Colton also said, I mean, money is a factor. And a lot of these SEC schools offer pretty generous out-of-state scholarships. So I'd encourage anyone who's looking at any of those schools to check it out because they love out-of-state students. So that influenced my decision. And also, I really wanted to be on a campus that I liked. And I think having that physical visit and enjoying where you think you're going to be is pretty critical to, having a successful college experience and knowing this is where I want to live for the next 4 years.
So I know that we are at our time limit of 10:15. So I really want to say I deeply appreciate each and every one of you, and what an amazing panel to have. And a resource for our sophomores to at least get a taste of what college life can and maybe will be for a lot of our students that go out into the world and find themselves within the university sector. So I want to say thank you again. There are more questions. I know we didn't get to. And then I also know Elizabeth, you made a suggestion. What we can do is try to see if any students are wanting to get in contact as a resource. Thank you for that suggestion, Elizabeth. So we will put that together. And I am now going to stop my hosting role and say, Mr. Crimmins and Ms. Browning, what's next for our sophomores? And say thank you to our panel.